Vietnam. The war was supposed to be over almost 30 years ago. But some believe it has never ended. Comparisons are being made with the war in Iraq. In fact, one big difference is that here weapons of mass destruction were used for many years. One was a defoliant called Agent Orange. Its crippling effects endure today. With more and more tourists coming to Vietnam, there's a perception outside that the war here is a distant memory, but nothing could be further from the truth. While relics like these from long ago battles are few and far between, you don't have to go far to find the human wreckage. A new battlefield is opening up over Agent Orange, and this fight's not going to happen here. They're taking it to a courtroom in New York City.
We are alleging violations of international law. The chemical companies profited from making the herbicides, and being the ones who manufactured it, they were or should have been aware of the risks involved.
It's Nguyen Van Kie's turn to feed Trung. His 16-year-old son needs constant care.
Nó nặng trước nó còn bé rồi nặng không bế nữa mà người giờ lại ốm yếu.
Nguyen is a veteran of what the Vietnamese call the American War. He's growing weaker by the day. Cancer pervades his stomach, liver and lungs. Heavy doses of chemotherapy have failed to stem its spread.
Hiện nay là sức khỏe nó không đủ để truyền nữa. Tức là sức khỏe nó không đủ điều kiện để mà nó tiếp nhận với cái đó thì người ta cho dừng lại.
Most of the daily caring of Trung and his 15-year-old sister Na falls to Nguyen's wife. Their daughter is deaf, cannot speak, and like her brother is intellectually impaired. They blame the deadly chemical dioxin in Agent Orange for blighting the family.
Con này nó không có cảm giác đâu. Dao dựa mà để không cẩn thận là nó cứ thái vào tay luôn. Ví dụ nhé, đây là cái tay này nó thái vào tay thôi này, mất miếng thịt đây, vẫn còn sẹo đây, nó thái mấy lần rồi.
Away from the public gaze in the back of his mother-in-law's shop in the northern industrial city of Haiphong, Nguyen explains why he has decided to join in the first lawsuit brought by the Vietnamese people against the American companies which manufactured the chemicals.
Mình cố gắng mình vươn lên nhưng mà nhiều lúc cũng không thể vượt qua được.
At 200 meters in the tree line.
For Phan Thi Phi, the hunger and hardships of the war seem a lifetime ago. Yet this retired doctor and respected Hanoi academic has also put her hand up for the latest battle, this time in the courts.
I live in the zone with dead trees, or I move in Ho Chi Minh Trail with two sides with dead trees.
Okay, we got good instruments right now. I'm going to try to make an approach here. Hopefully I can let you know there's something favorable.
As the Americans and their allies, including Australia, struggled to defeat North Vietnam and the Viet Cong, one weapon in their armoury was Agent Orange. Under Operation Ranch Hand, planes and helicopters drenched the countryside with 42 million litres of the chemical for 8 years, from 1962 to 1970. It killed the trees that gave cover to the enemy and deprived them of the rice they depended on for food. The Agent Orange compound contained dioxin, one of the most toxic substances known to man. The Vietnamese say this poisonous war breached the Geneva Convention, and the consequences are more than 3 million victims.
The reason that 1925 Geneva Protocol is important in this case because the United Nations passed a resolution that the use of any kind of biological or chemical weapon to kill plants in time of war is a violation of that protocol.
From 1966, Dr. Phi Phi managed field hospitals in central Vietnam, treating civilians and soldiers.
Roger, request 1 round elimination, ASAP, ASAP. Roger, 10 1 round elimination, stand by.
When bombing intensified, the doctors, staff and patients were literally running for their lives, moving constantly on and around the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Why do you think that you were affected by Agent Orange?
We ate the manioc, the vegetable, the rice, and we drank the stream water from the highland. We wash in the stream water, but the stream water is intoxicating also by the spray.
Dr. Phi Phi and her husband had a daughter before the war. She blames the effects of dioxin on her body for 4 miscarriages she had after the war. Tell me what happened to you when you had that 4th miscarriage.
Very early, the second day, from 5:30, the blood, the hemorrhage became very severe, and they must add emergency. And at night, they must take out my fetus.
The spraying had stopped by the time Nguyen joined the army in 1971. Although the evidence of Agent Orange was unmistakable, at the time it wasn't the concern of the young soldier.
Chỉ nghĩ đến chuyện đánh nhau thôi, độc nghĩ đến chuyện đi tìm ăn, đói ăn mới đánh nhau thôi, ít khi mà nghĩ đến cái chuyện ấy.
One day he recalls finding some barrels. He thought they contained oil. In fact, it was Agent Orange.
Không, tôi lấy cái con dao găm tôi cậy ra tôi thấy thế tôi khèo thì tôi nhìn, đưa lên nhìn xem nó là cái gì.
His health declined from then on. He experienced chronic headaches, skin rashes and weakness. He could no longer work, and now at 47 may have only months to live. Professor Nguyen Trong Nan heads the Vietnam Association for Victims of Agent Orange that is behind the class action. Although he is Vietnam's former health minister, he says the organisation is independent of the government. He has rubbed shoulders with 2 American presidents and tried to persuade them to compensate Agent Orange victims.
Ex-President George Bush,
Yes.
Mr.
They both failed to do so.
took.
It's a long time since the war ended. Why has it taken so long to launch this legal case?
Nhân dân Việt Nam đã có cái chịu đựng, kiên nhẫn, chờ đợi, mong muốn hợp tác với Mỹ để giải quyết hậu quả. Nhưng rất tiếc là phía Mỹ đã trốn tránh trách nhiệm. Vì thế, những nạn nhân chất độc hóa học ở Việt Nam phải kiện là việc họ không muốn, nhưng mà
beneath the often beautiful veneer, there are sinister reminders throughout Vietnam of the unfinished war. The Vietnamese call this lake near Bien Hoa City a toxic hotspot. The Americans stored huge quantities of Agent Orange at an air base just 500 metres away. Dioxin from there was absorbed into the groundwater and the soil. And while the Americans left here nearly 30 years ago, they left this deadly legacy behind. The Vietnamese say that the poison has killed and maimed their families and will continue to do so for generations to come. American and Vietnamese scientists took blood samples from local people in the late 90s. They found extraordinarily high levels of dioxin. 19 out of 20 people had levels 135 times higher than Vietnamese from areas not exposed to Agent Orange. We were told people were prohibited from catching and eating the fish from this toxic lake, but in just the short time we were there, we saw 2 people fishing. How are you going to prove the scientific link that says that these cancers and birth deformities were caused by Agent Orange?
Và chúng tôi đã điều tra so sánh những cộng đồng, những người bị giải chất độc với những người ở những vùng không bị giải chất độc, thì thấy rằng những bệnh tật, những loại ung thư như thế này đó là xảy ra ở trong cộng đồng những người bị giải chất độc nhiều hơn.
At Ho Chi Minh's largest maternity hospital, parents taking their healthy newborn babies home shield them from the public gaze to protect their beauty. They're the lucky ones. In the adjacent Lang Hoa Binh village are other children born here who never leave. The rooms of the orphanage behind these locked doors are home to 60 children with physical and intellectual problems. So we have here the young children, babies. Yeah. Dr. Nguyen Thi Phong Tan believes 2/3 of the problems were caused by Agent Orange and says they've been left here because their parents are poor and can't look after them. When I asked Dr. Tan to separate out those children in this cot room that she believed were affected by dioxin, she selected 4 out of 20. They included 2-year-old Tran Thung Sin. Born in a province heavily sprayed with Agent Orange, the girl has no eyes and can't walk, and she's the first child they've seen like this.
Bên thì có cái nhãn cầu, còn một bên thì no.
For some here, life will be short, perhaps only 5 years. For a few, it will also be painful. Yet others overcome. Another claimed Agent Orange victim, Duc, arrived here when he was 3 years old. 20 years on, he is employed as the home's computer administrator. His agility belies his early childhood. He and his brother Viet were among an unusually high number of conjoined twins born in Vietnam. The boys were conjoined at the pelvis and were filmed in 1983 by the ABC's Four Corners program. When they were 7, they were separated. The elaborate series of operations left Viet, seen here on the right, brain damaged. He now lives downstairs from Duc.
Và hiện nay thì anh bị cháu nằm một chỗ, cháu viện ba não. Cháu cũng là nằm trong số những nạn nhân chất độc da cam, cho nên cháu nghĩ rằng là nước Mỹ cần phải có một đó gì đó, phải có một sự bồi thường hoặc là giúp đỡ cho những người mà đã chính Mỹ do Mỹ đã gây ra chiến tranh.
Nam, trong bài này có tất cả bao nhiêu bài? 23. 23. Chẳng lẽ được không? Chẳng lẽ?
Đã bấm vào dậu.
Duc passes his computer skills on to the other children, including 10-year-old Lynn. With no arms but a sharp mind, she is said to be a third-generation Agent Orange victim. Her grandfather was a soldier in the South Vietnamese army and handled the chemicals with the Americans. He died of cancer. Now Lynn's father also has cancer.
Chúng tôi thấy là nó đã tác hại đến đời cháu. Vì thế cho nên là không ai biết được là nó sẽ tác hại đến đời nào thì mới chấm dứt.
Downstairs from the maternity wards of the same hospital is a room that would give any prospective parent nightmares.
No scan. Okay.
And also the no scan.
No scan. No. Twins.
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 Yeah.
Twins.
Lots of twins here. There's a lot
Twin
of twins
here.
here.
A lot.
Yes. The bottles contain severely malformed fetuses, many of them twins or triplets, aborted mainly in the 80s and 90s. Dr. Tan insists that these unborn babies were the victims of Agent Orange. The US District Court in Brooklyn, New York is worlds away from the rice paddies and jungles of Vietnam. But this is where the Vietnamese are waging their legal battle against the American chemical companies. Dean Kokoris heads the legal team that will allege violations of international law and war crimes.
If you're really interested in curtailing the use of chemical weapons and biological weapons in warfare, one of the most effective ways of doing it is making the companies that manufacture these things, the chemical weapons, financially responsible, because that will remove the incentive to even make the stuff and to sell it.
This is AFVN Noon Report. Allied troops continue to turn up enemy bodies around Loch Ness.
The new case will draw on the experience of another group of Vietnam War victims, the American, Australian and New Zealand veterans who successfully brought a class action against the companies. They too claimed Agent Orange had caused cancers and birth deformities. Many veterans were unhappy with the 1985 settlement.
Some veterans, angry over the complex medical debate, have instead focused on the manufacturers of Agent Orange, particularly Dow Chemical. This May, a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit brought by 40,000 veterans will finally be heard.
The companies paid out the equivalent of $236 million, but they never admitted liability. Now, more American veterans have also initiated further legal action in New York against them. Since the United States lifted the trade embargo on Vietnam 10 years ago, American companies have set up offices in Ho Chi Minh City. Among them, 2 of the 20 chemical companies being sued, Dow and Monsanto. The companies declined foreign correspondents' invitation for an interview about the legal action. A statement from Dow said,
"We believe that it is the role of the U.S. government and the government of Vietnam to resolve any issues related to wartime activities. The U.S. government compelled production of Agent Orange under the Defense Production Act and controlled how it was produced and used."
Monsanto said,
U.S. government contractors are protected from liability under U.S. law, and civil claims were addressed in 1984. The government of Vietnam resolved its claims as part of the treaties that ended the war.
Since we're alleging violations of the laws of war or war crimes, It's not a defense to an allegation of war crimes that your government told you to do it. We know that from the Nuremberg trials.
What kind of compensation are you looking for the victims in Vietnam of Agent Orange?
Chúng tôi nghĩ rằng là cái đền bù đó phải hết sức lớn, bởi vì nó liên quan đến sức khỏe con người, đến sinh mạng con người, đến quyền sống của con người. Mà cái quyền sống là cái quyền đầu tiên của con người ghi ở trong cái tuyên ngôn nhân quyền của nước Mỹ.
We're also seeking money for the cleanup of these, what they call hotspots, places in Vietnam where the herbicides have still found to be contaminating the soil and the groundwater.
Whether Nguyen and his family will ever see any money is doubtful. It will be at least 6 months before the court case goes to the next stage and could take years to obtain a result.
Em thì nói chung là tương lai thì mình thì nghĩ là con cái như là cuộc sống như thế thì mình nghĩ chẳng có cái gì.
For justice, they must pay because they know when they produce, even with the order of the government, but they know from 49 to 50 years.
So you think that they knew what dioxin could do to human beings?
They knew.
The Vietnamese countryside is green once more, vegetation grafted over the scars left by Agent Orange. It's the human misery that is harder to camouflage, and the fear that damaged genes will be impossible to heal.